Hello. So I have a little story from our inherited wisdom. It begins with some words from Sophocles, translated by Robert Fitzgerald. And these words are, and yet one word frees us from all the weight and pain in life. That word is love. So that prompted me to write about this quilt here. I noticed a small rip in the flowery blue fabric. So there's a little rip in one of these blue spots here, and I noticed that. This caused me to look a little more closely at the quilt that I had had for about 3 decades. It seemed impossible that wear would ever show on something that had been carefully stitched by one of my grandmothers. My mother's mother. She was a corseted, strong woman who had always seemed to be the essence of durability. Her patterns were as firm as the shapes on the quilt. More than 100 clusters of colorful hexagons spanned the quilt's surface. Like many who had little money, my grandmother let nothing go to waste. She had pieced together a home by patiently and creatively using and reusing whatever was available. The quilt, which is aptly called Grandmother's Flower Quilt, represents how she turned scraps into a lasting story of quiet love. The hexagonal form of the quilt pieces is the most efficient use of material. Bees construct their honeycombs with hexagonal shapes, where each side fits together without leaving gaps. Hexagons are found elsewhere in nature, such as in DNA, snowflakes, and crystals, as well as large cloud formation over the North Pole of the planet Saturn. The heart of 2 interlocking triangles, one facing upward and one downward, forms a hexagon, symbolically representing eternal love flowing between heaven and earth. True love seldom, if ever, looks for recognition. It just continues to express itself in different ways throughout our lives. For the most part, it is masked over by the despair and stress of mortal existences. Yet, there are the bees diligently pollinating plants and making honeycombs, and the quilting bees of women sitting around a table, stitching together the front and backs of quilts. And so it's not necessarily women, but mostly women. Their efforts and work remain mostly anonymous until there is a tear or decline in their population. Then we notice the loving infrastructure is more fragile than we had imagined. For a long while, I had dismissed Sophocles' words on love. They seemed to offer easy terminology to respond to the suffering of others. That simple phrase, frees us. That is, if we look at his word, and yet one word frees us from all the weight and pain of life. That word is love. So that simple phrase, frees us, shifted my perspective inward to recognize that at the core of kindness, compassion, and service is a hexagonal garden of love. To know and to be that love is a lifetime of focus and work. I hope to take one small step each day by noticing a bit more of the lessons within everyday life. Thank you for joining me for this little story from our inherited wisdom, and may you be well. And thanks again for listening. Take care.